Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to talk about things that your dog shouldn't do, shouldn't have, and things like this. I think sometimes these things get pushed under the rug. Some people don't think about these things. They can be dangerous, they can be deadly. And so I want to explain some of them. Some of them are my opinion only. And the cool thing about learning things from a professional trainer or anybody else, you pick and choose which things work for you. I'm just going to tell you about them. I'm going to tell you about their dangers, and then you do what's of course good for you. And I'm just going by experience, and so we'll go from there. So the first thing that your dogs should not ever have or ever play with is a laser. So I'm talking about the red lasers that you use for cats. They frustrate a dog because they can't physically catch it. And what happens is your dogs get obsessive over it, and they will start chasing shadows and barking at shadows and digging at shadows. There's been a lot of severe cases where a dog will see a shadow on the wall and dig through the wall to try to get it. Dogs can hurt themselves in their crates trying to go after shadows. I had a pair of dogs here at Rocking Paw, and this had nothing to do with lasers at all. But they were obsessive about shadows, and they would hit the walls and dig at the walls and all like that. But the laser, if you think about it, is a beam, and it's not like playing with a tug toy that you can drag across the floor and they can grab. So they get frustrated, and the more you play with the laser, the more they will chase and try to grab at shadows. So my recommendation would be to not do that. There's been a lot of dogs that have had to been euthanized because they've gotten so destructive or even hurt themselves over it. And so there haven't been good endings. And then the ones that, haven't been euthanized, you have to really manage it because they can hurt themselves or even, be destructive to your property and things like that. So lasers are a no-no. The second thing is any kind of rope toy. I'm talking about the rope toys that have 10 million strings in them. They're in everything. They're even in some of the Kong toys where they have the ropes underneath the fur. So the bad thing about rope toys is that when your dogs chew them and they chew them up and they ingest them, those strings tie up in their intestines. So instead of a regular toy or swallowing a sock or something like that and just getting a blockage to where you have to go in for emergency surgery and get that out if they can't pass it and things like that, the ropes will tie up the intestines. And so I've had a couple of students, not a couple, 4. I've had 4 students from the time that I've been here in Lubbock that didn't survive on the table because as they thought it was a blockage, because those little strings were tied up in their intestines and there wasn't any saving the colon or anything like that. So my suggestion would be to trash every rope toy that you have so that the dogs aren't getting a hold of them. And they're in everything. I mean, if you could go through my toy box and there is not a rope toy anywhere in the house or even over here at the training center. And if you boarded here, it's actually on my form that you cannot have a rope toy when you board them. All right, the next thing is if you have your collar on your dog all the time, I just want you to know that in their crate, in the house, unsupervised, or with other dogs, that it can be a danger. All of my dogs run around naked, which means that they don't have a collar on. All my dogs are microchipped, which means that if they get lost or stolen or anything like that, then they can be found with their, when a microchip is scanned. So many dogs, and I'm talking weekly, just in our own city, that when they're playing in the yard or playing in the house, all of a sudden it looks like your dog is attacking the other dog. And what's happened is in play, their jaw gets stuck underneath the collar this dog panics, and they turn and they twist. And so the one that has a collar on is asphyxiating. In other words, they cannot breathe. And then the other dog's jaw's stuck in there, so they can get it can tear their jaw up, and you could possibly lose 2 dogs. Now, if you're like, oh, I only have 1 dog, it's not that big of a deal, we don't have that problem. If you crate your dog, it's happened before that the buckle or something like that can get caught on the crate, and then they can asphyxiate that way. So I always recommend that my students go naked at home, and just make sure that your puppies are microchipped. And so there's lots of organizations here. I know in Lubbock, if you're watching this local, that you can get them microchipped very inexpensively. I know the rescues like the South Plains SPCA, I think they just charge $20. And so you can get that registered that way. And the city also does microchip clinics, and so you can get it inexpensive. And so those are things that I wanted to tell you about that are dangerous to your dogs. Now, I never give rawhides. The reason why I don't give rawhides is because as they chew on them, they get slimy, and then they try to swallow that, and then they end up choking. The other reason is because all the chemicals that go into bleaching and dyeing and everything else, the rawhides, they'll get tummy aches. They can get blockages if they swallow a lot. There's a lot of other great options for chew bones rather than rawhide, but that is one of the treats, chew things that I won't give, and I don't recommend, and I don't allow them here at the training center. The other thing that I wanted to discuss, hang on, I gotta grab it, is a tennis ball. So most people love to give a tennis ball and to play fetch with their dogs. Because it's soft, dogs aren't really big fans of super hard toys in their mouth. Most dogs have what we call a soft mouth. And then you have some dogs that sit there and chew and chew and chew. Well, since we have TikTok now and Instagram and all of those different social medias, you have these great big animal emergency clinics that have their own feed. And so what we have learned because of this is that more dogs actually asphyxiate, big dogs, and I'm talking medium size up from border collie up, because we think this is the perfect size for our dogs. When in actuality, the perfect size for a tennis ball would be smaller dogs like Cavaliers and Schnauzers and things like that. Anything bigger than that should be using one size bigger. So the dangers of a tennis ball is this. 1, dogs like to peel them, right? And so when they peel them, they can chew it off and, of course, get a blockage or choke. The other thing is some dogs will sit and they'll chew and they'll chew and they'll chew and they'll chew on this tennis ball. Well, this felt, if you sat there and rubbed like this for more than 60 seconds, you would get a blister on your finger. So you can imagine what it's doing to their teeth. So by the time they're 2 or 3 years old, they are basically filing their teeth down, and they're not going to have those beautiful canines. And then the other thing is the size of the ball. So I was talking about those TikToks and the Instagrams and stuff. So this is what happens. You throw the ball, the dog gets the ball and brings it back. Throw the ball, vice versa, and it's an ongoing game. So after about 4 throws, you see the dog with the tennis ball in their mouth and their tongue's hanging out. And the tennis ball is in their mouth this way. So they're breathing super hard, and what happens is they go, and then it lodges in their trachea, in their breathing tube. And so you basically have 3 minutes or less to get your dogs to the vet to get them to unlodge this. So if you've ever seen the videos, they put the dogs on their back and they stretch their necks out, and they got these grabbers, and they push along the ball this way, and they pop that ball out. But if you're like me and you live, a good 20 minutes to the nearest vet, you're never going to get your dog out in there in time. So we don't play with tennis balls because of all the dangers. The balls that we do play with are the rubber chuck-it balls. And so they're not going to grind down their teeth. They're not going to peel them back. And so the orange ones with the blue stripe, these are the rubber ones, are perfect for your smaller dogs. And then for your medium size up, they have the blue Chuckets that have the orange stripe. And so those are the safe ones that are not going to lodge in your dog's throat. And so those are some of the things that I wanted to talk about, that not everybody is, it's not one of those things that your vets talk about with you or anything like that. And so I really wanted to talk about those things with you. We'll talk about daycares and dog parks and play dates in another video. If you have any questions about this video, or maybe even some other things that you've heard about that you think I should mention, make sure and let me know.